Hi everyone, welcome back to Olive City Homestead. It's a gorgeous August day, and this morning I'd like to share with you a little about walking onions, otherwise known as Egyptian walking onions. And some people just see them and think they're green onions, but they're not, they're special. First though, I'm going to feed my chickens a little treat from the garden. Okay ladies, where are you all? They're all waiting. I'd say patiently, but I don't know how patient they are. Well, they're pretty quiet. Okay, here you go. So, this is a bunch of delicata squash seeds and carrot peels. There's a few other little things, but that's mostly it. Tell you what, nothing goes to waste around here. If it's not turned into compost, it's turned into chicken feed. Which, if you think about it, eventually gets turned back into compost. All right, on to walking onions. My favorite plant of all. Right, girls? Right. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little crazy here. I'm going to insert a video clip that I did 3 months ago on May 5th. And that is when I first experimented with planting, well, cutting off and planting the bulbils on my walking onions. And I thought you guys would like to see what they look like right after they've exploded, because they're really interesting, kind of fascinating actually. So I'll let you watch that clip, and it'll give you sort of a foundation for everything we're going to see after that. The bumblebees are enjoying this borage plant. Anyway, came out here to show you my walking onions. So here you can see the top set that's formed on this Egyptian walking onion. This one is, you can see where it's broken open. The papery yellow skin broke open, and now you have a top set of bulbils. Here's one that's broke open quite a while ago, and you can see how much bigger those bulbils are. Sometimes, if you leave it and don't break them off and plant them or eat them, the the top set will send out more shoots and more top sets. So today, I'm going to do an experiment and plant some of these. So I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to do some that are mature, as in bigger, like this, and some that are tiny, more recently exploded from their skin, and see which ones grow. If they all grow, or some grow faster or better than others. Yeah, I'm just going to check it out. I have probably, 100. That was my cat. I probably have 100 of these. Maybe only 60 or 70, I don't know, I haven't counted. From, I planted about 30, I think, that I ordered in the mail. And I have separated some of the clumps to create, see the cardboard there? That's where I'm going to put down some wood chips today. Yeah, some clumps that I separated so to create more plants. But this will be the first time that I have planted the walking onion bulbils. So yeah, gonna do that, and I'll show you how that goes. Egyptian walking onions. They are my favorite plant of all. I can't believe I said that. It's like, what's your favorite book? How can you pick? What's your favorite plant? I don't know. How can you pick? Well, okay, my favorite perennial vegetable, probably my favorite vegetable, is Egyptian walking onions. How do they differ from just green onions? If you just look at them in the pot or in the ground, wherever you have them growing, they don't look any different. In fact, they don't taste any different, except I think they taste a little better than your typical green onion. But what makes them different is the way they produce, or the way they propagate themselves. And as they grow, a few times a year, they send up through their stems what looks like a little alien climbing up to the top. When it hits the top, it will explode into a bunch of little bulbils, which then look like this, and you plant them. And I'll go into that in more detail in a moment. But I just wanted to talk about what they do and what part of them are edible. Yeah, so throughout the year, as they grow, you can harvest them whenever you want, however much you want. Some people will treat them like lettuce or regular green onions and just, you know, chop them right at the base, the whole thing off. I don't do that. I take, if a plant has like 6 or 7 of these long stalks, I'll cut maybe 3 to 5 off around. I always leave 2 or 3 on the plant, and I leave the center new ones, and I cut from the outside, and then the plant just sends up more. I've never had a walking onion die on me ever. No matter how much I cut off, as long as I leave a couple of stalks on. And these are delicious. Now, you can pull the whole plant out of the ground, and in the base of it is an onion. It's small. It might be the size of a marble. It might be 2, even 3 times that big, but it wouldn't be bigger than that. So you would have little baby onions. But I would have never done, well, I've done it once just to see what it was like, but I don't do that because I want to grow more and more of these. And so, yeah, you could eat it. It is a little onion, and the greens are fabulous, and that's what I use all year long. They grow just as well here in Zone 9B in the winter as they do the rest of the year. But then when these produce, of course, I just plant them because I'm crazy about growing more, but you can eat the little bulbils here. So you can grab these and break them apart and use them as baby onions in a salad or a stir fry if you wanted to. And, you know, it may get to the point that I start doing that because I have probably over 200 of these at this time. Yeah. But Egyptian walking onions, they call them walking because they bend over. And if they're in the soil, they would hit the ground. Yeah, it's not going to hit the ground here, but if it went down like this and hit the ground, then you can see that those would just set root immediately. Now, a few weeks ago, 2 at the most, I put a bunch of little bulbils in this pot, and you can see they've all grown up. Now, when I put them in there, they were just a little tiny white bulbil. You can see on this one, it's not even set deep in there, and it's still got those roots. I could bury it a little deeper, but it's fine. Sometimes the bulbil will have lots of green coming out of it like these do, but sometimes they don't even have any. And I've done experiments and put them in the ground when they have had no green coming out of them at all, but they're, and even really tiny ones, and you know what? 90% of the time or more, they grow. They're super, super easy to grow. Now, let's talk about them a little bit more. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Egyptian walking onions and how they work, how they propagate, how you can grow them. But why should you grow them when you can just go to the store and buy green onions for pretty cheap? Well, there are a few reasons. One, if you grow Egyptian walking onions, after the initial purchase, you'd never have to spend any money on green onions again because these things are perennial and they will expand, and before you know it, you'll have more green onions than you know what to do with. Now, the second reason has to be the flavor. I think it's just better than green onions. I don't know anyone that's tried my walking onions that doesn't agree. They're just so delicious. Yeah, give them a try, and I think you'll agree too. But I think the greatest reason by far for you to grow Egyptian walking onions rather than just buying green onions at the store is the freshness factor. Because face it, how many times have you gone to the grocery store and you've spent several minutes carefully selecting just the right bunch of green onions, you know, just perfect for a dish you're planning for that night or maybe the next night, and then you get them home and you put them in the fridge and you forget about them. It happens even to the best of us. Maybe a couple of days go by before you think of it, or maybe more. But when you get back to them, sometimes they're not those fresh, perfect green onions anymore. Instead, they're this deteriorating, soggy, stinky mess. Well, that will never happen again if you grow your own Egyptian walking onions, because when you're cooking and you've got a dish that you think, oh, green onions would be great in this, you can just walk out your door to your garden and cut however many fresh Egyptian walking onions that you want. And, you know, you can't get fresher than that. Okay, so once you have snapped off the new little bulbils from the top of your Egyptian walking onions, it is very simple. I mean, it couldn't get simpler to pop them in the ground. You can put them anywhere you want, really, and they're gonna grow. So here I have cinder blocks, and you might hear some bad things about growing in cinder blocks, but really that's only the really old ones that you have to worry about. Anything that's made recently, and by that, geez, I can't remember if it was like 20 years or what, but you really don't have to worry about it unless you get cinder blocks from some like really old construction site or something. These are fine to grow in, and I haven't had any problems with them at all. So anyway, you can do them in a pot, you can do them in the ground, you can do them in a raised bed. They just grow crazy anywhere. Now, some of your bulbils that you've broken off are going to actually have greenery coming out of them. See the green onions growing, green onion tops? And some won't yet. Let's see if I can find one that doesn't here. This single one here does not have any green growing out of it yet, but it came off of a green stem. So you want to break your bulbils off before the onion, the green onion part that you usually eat, before it turns yellow. Yellows may be okay, but once it starts to go white and just to dry up, you better get them off quick if you haven't already, because then it starts getting iffy. But really, up until the point they start to dry, they're fine. Whether they have the whether they have the green coming out of the top or not, they're gonna grow fine 90% of the time at least, if not more. So really there's nothing to this. I almost feel silly even showing you, but you're just going to take one of the bulbils and put it in the ground. Shove the dirt a little bit around it, and that's all there is to it. If you have a group of them, you're going to break them apart, which is going to be challenging for me to do with one hand, but I'm going to attempt it. So just gently break them apart. Now, you can also just plant them in a clump. Like, okay, see these two together? You could plant those together, no problem at all. And they will grow fine in a clump. But I'm going to break mine apart. I don't know why. I just feel like it today. So, and how close should you plant them together? Well, that's really up to you. They do fine close together. Also, how important is it that you get them, you know, totally vertical with the green part, or what will be the green part going straight up? Not really. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I try to, but it's really not. For one thing, when you start watering, unless you're super, super careful, you're probably going to move these around a bit. They might even get buried. And guess what? It doesn't really matter. Let me show you where I planted some like 4 days ago, 5 days ago. Okay, here are some green onions coming up where I planted them, green onion tops, where I planted the Egyptian walking onion bulbils about 4 days ago. They had no green growth on them, these, when I planted them, and here they are already over an inch tall, and then they quickly shoot up past that. So your walking onions will send off their little baby bulbils a few times a year, depending on your climate, and just keep an eye on them. You can't miss it. It's just really fun. I love these onions. They taste delicious, and after ordering them on eBay last spring, for the first time ever, after hearing about it on another YouTube channel, which was Robbie and Gary Gardening Easy, I was thrilled to get them in the mail very quickly, and they were basically these. They were about this size, actually. They had a little bit of greenery coming out of the bulbils, and there was like 5 of them. And I'm hesitating because maybe it was more like 10. I had ordered 5, but I think he sent extra. Anyway, I planted them, and now, a year later, oh my gosh, I haven't counted, but I easily have over 100. You might think that's a lot, but think about when you use green onions. If you're like me, you use quite a few at one time when you cook. So the more I have of these, the better, and I am loving it. So easy. All year round, too. At least here in Zone 9B, where our winters are pretty mild, but I've heard from some other zones where their winters are colder that theirs are perennial, as in not just perennial, they are producing in the winter too. So I guess you'd have to, you know, experiment with that. But if your winters are too cold to handle if your winters are too cold for your walking onions to handle being outside all winter, you can always plant some in pots and bring them in the house. That's what I would do totally if necessary, because that's how good they are. Okay, I wanted to show you one final stage in this process. So here I have some of my Egyptian walking onions in a 15-gallon container, and most of them I took the bulbils off and have planted. I have not yet cut back the stems from those. So you can see here a yellow one that is all dry that I need to cut back. Now you can also see here and here I have 2 of them that still have bulbils on that I need to break off and go plant somewhere. No rush, they're still okay. You can see it's starting to yellow, but it's still got green feeding it here. But I'll get them off within the week. So what happens though after you do is that they continue to dry up. Whether you cut them off or not, if you don't cut these off, they're going to get so dry and brittle over the next few weeks, they're just going to break off real easy. And then what happens is, look, new green onions grow right up from the roots of that same plant. So now all of these green ones are tender and fresh. They've come up since I've broken off the baby green onions to plant other places, just in the last 3 weeks. And that's what I mean about continuously providing wonderful food. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend the Egyptian walking onion. It is definitely just one of my top plants to have on the homestead or in your backyard. If I only had an apartment balcony, you can bet this would be there. Several of them. So that's all for now. Right, girls? Is that all for now? Can you say bye? All right. So grow some Egyptian walking onions. You won't regret it. Okay, well, I know I said that was the final thing I wanted to show you, but actually I have a final thing. So I thought you might like to see what happens after the onions die back. You know, you've broken off the bulbils, you've planted them, the stems have yellowed, and then finally have broken away. This is what happens. I had 5 clumps of walking onions here that I planted last spring when I originally got my first little plants in the mail, my little 1-inch plants, and they grew and they were wonderful to eat all year, and then they produced their little bulbils, and I broke them off the way I showed you, planted them, and then those all died back. And you can see in a few places the remains. See how I touched that and it fell off. But even if you don't, they just break off, or you can cut them off. And this is what happens. From the roots, new green onions grow. Isn't that great? I think it is. I think it's kind of a little miracle, cycle of life and all that, and perennial edible plants. I mean, you can't really beat that. It's fabulous. Just like, oh, those garlic chives there. Those are perennial edible plants too. But we're talking about walking onions. So really, like I said in the last section of this video, these are just my favorites, and you really should grow them. Just give them a try. You won't be sorry. One thing I wanted to mention is that I noticed that several times throughout this video, I've given you different numbers because I'm talking off the top of my head. So I've said, I think that, maybe I have 100, maybe I have 200 of these now. I actually have no idea, but really an educated guess says it's easily over 100 and maybe even close to 200. I'm going to count though. Now I'm really curious. Also, when I bought them, I've given a couple different numbers. I think I said 5 or 10, and then at another point I said 25 or 30. So that's quite a difference. So I went and looked back at my notes for my order, and it turns out that it actually was that I ordered 10, but the guy on eBay. So sorry, my camera turned off and I just realized it now. So as I was saying, I went back and looked at my original eBay order, and the guy was supposed to send me 10. That's how many I ordered. But actually he sent between 25 and 30. It was hard for me to tell because some of them were like connected in little clumps. Some were such tiny bulbils and didn't have any green coming out of them. I didn't really know if they should count. So, I'd never seen them before or grown them before. So I ended up saying, oh, something like 25 or 30. I'm not sure. But they definitely started actually walking on their own before I noticed it. And so they spread a bit. And then at the time that I started snapping the bulbils off and planting them myself, I had 50 or 60. And now, like I said, I'm going to count because I think I probably have like 200, but I want to be sure. So I'm not just throwing out numbers, guessing. I should be consistent. So that's what I'm going to do. Hey guys, I counted, and I have 189 walking onion plants. I know that sounds like too many, but I really haven't found it to be. We use them all the time. I mean, if you think about it, I cook with them almost every day, and that's not really that many, right? Perennial edible plants. I mean, come on, that's fabulous. That's what we all want, right? Okay, well, if you'd like more videos with easy gardening ideas and useful tips for a simple living homestead, then just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you'll know every time I upload new content. And remember, you can garden and live your way and create the life you want.